Hello. So this is going to be the last topic we're taking a look at for today. This is the broad idea of service. Now, if you are volunteering at a hospital or you already have a clinical job, you're hitting this already. It's kind of like how if you're doing a compound exercise at the gym, like you're doing a bench press, you're targeting more than one muscle already. But if you really want your musculature to grow in the way that you want it to grow, you have to incorporate isolation exercises. So, for example, if the clinical experience is like a bench press, the service attribute is maybe like a tricep extension where you're just targeting one major muscle group. So, for service, these would include things like participating, leading, or designing activities that are of the benefit for the common good. The way that I was able to fulfill this idea was I became pretty involved in my religious groups. And initially, I was able to participate in a number of community service related activities. Then I started designing and leading my own. And then by the time that I was president of one of the major organizations, I designed and spearheaded an entire service project. Um, and this isn't related to healthcare per se at all. Um, but serving the community, one, is a good thing to do. But two, from the admissions officer perspective, it shows that you're not just doing things for the sake of healthcare. Now, if you can somehow tie in your service actions more towards healthcare, that's great too. But it's showing that you are an outgoing, service-oriented person. Being a doctor or being a healthcare worker in general is about serving people at their most vulnerable states. And by demonstrating a quality of service, you are exhibiting a sense of understanding of the world and that it is necessary, it is incumbent on a person to register the deficits in his or her reality and go about a way of improving them. So, some ways to get involved with this, as I've mentioned, I did it through more of a religious pathway and also a pedagogical pathway. I've helped serve as a learning assistant for a number of classes at the University of California, Irvine. I've worked as a mentor for a few different programs. Um, that's the bulk of the service work I've done unaffiliated with healthcare. Um, so I would say connect with specific cultural or identity oriented clubs and organizations on campus, see what they have to offer. You'll make friends along the way, you'll make connections, which is probably the initial intent of the club. But as a byproduct of joining that club, as a byproduct of forming connections, you will hopefully be able to serve the broader community. If there aren't the clubs and organizations that you like or that you've bonded with, you could reach out to things that are adjacent to campus. You could look up local organizations that you might be interested in. Maybe you can start your own club. Um, it doesn't have to be identity related. I know there are certain clubs related to, so sometimes there are just service clubs. Um, I know one prominent club is called, I think, the Best Friends program, where students partner up with people with certain mental disabilities and just hang out with them, um, act as a person of support for these individuals. Um, and if there's nothing, there's absolutely nothing on campus or locally, or maybe you just don't have time, then you can use the internet. You could make YouTube videos like I am right now, or TikToks, or Instagram, or whatever uses your creative features. And if you're having trouble becoming creative, then we need to make you into a more creative person. So maybe you are really good at research and you already are creative. You just don't know it yet because you're designing experiments, and that is a great facet of creativity. But you want to expand that to different dimensions of your life. So what you could go about doing is consuming information. Read a lot on whatever it is that you're interested in. And by accruing all this different information, you will be able to see kind of what humanity has discovered in your respective subject field. And from those discoveries, kind of borrowing from a phrase I already used, you'll be able to see the deficits that exist in reality. And you'll be able to then fulfill those deficits. It's the exact same thing that goes on in research, where you're in a research lab, you study pathology of, I don't know, arrhythmia, long-term QT arrhythmia or something, right? You read the literature, you see what we have, what don't we have. And as a result of figuring out what we don't have, that gives you a direct goal for you to plan around and for you to solve. You can do that, but apply it just to a whole bunch of different aspects in the world. Maybe it's education, like I enjoy doing. Um, Maybe there's a specific marginalized community that you want to help out with. Maybe you're interested in developing perhaps a more holistic curriculum for students at the university that you're affiliated with. Um, Whatever it is, that goal will come as a byproduct of you doing your own research in the area that you are based in or the subjects that you are interested in. And a last point that I'd like to hammer on this is don't let your ego take the win. So don't try and do something of service and try to do it all by yourself because you will not be able to do as much as is needed by yourself as is compared with working with other people. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. Um, Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of humility. And from perhaps a more mature admissions officer perspective, it's a sign of strength. Learning how to work in a team is another one of the most marketable aspects that you can use of yourself because ultimately all organizations intrinsically require teamwork. And if you can't work in a team, you can't really be part of the organization and serve the organization well. Even as a physician, right? You're the head of the healthcare team, you're the leader, but that doesn't mean that you are healing the patient by themselves. Mostly it's the patient's body that heals itself, right? But you work with nurses, you work with other doctors, you work with medical assistants, you work with respiratory technicians, you work with surgical specialists or technicians, you work with X-ray technicians, MRI technicians. You have this huge healthcare team, not to mention healthcare administration, that is involved in patient-centered care. And if you can't work in that team, you are not just letting the patient down, you're letting yourself down because at the end of the day, you could do more by working with the team. And I think that's about it. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that I've written out in this website that I haven't covered over these past so many videos. But I hope I've covered pretty much everything. We're going to take a break for a bit, and then at a later point, I'm going to go into this digging deeper section. So the digging deeper section will include aspects of your personal statement, how to effectively relate or reflect on your critical experiences, um, kind of just, it's going to be an overall guide of how to analyze your life and become a bit of a mini philosopher psychologist. Because in that analysis, you're going to have so much to write about on your application. Um, yeah. Okay. That's about it for today. Thank you so much for joining me.